itself as the 2017 world champion and the Japanese national champion. But this is actually going to be a really difficult matchup for Ryota, in my opinion, based on how these teams match up.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, especially given that Santino, that MVP, has really been that Zarina. So you're denying a lot of those priority moves that are going to come out from Ryota's team. But Aaron, what I'm really looking at when it comes down to this particular matchup is speed control, especially knowing that that Choice Scarf is on that Kyogre. There aren't actually many ways that Ryota, especially with that Zarina there, that Ryota can actually deny Tailwind. So when you're taking a look at how fast that Kyogre can really go, and as well as the supporting actors on Santino's team under that Tailwind environment, I think Ryota's going to struggle a lot despite having Trick Room on that Stakataka.
Exactly. So I think a lot about this is, does Santi identify like he needs to get Tailwind up to match Ryota's Tailwind, right? One thing that can be a little bit awkward is when you have Tailwind, your opponent has Tailwind, you kind of feel forced to bring it just to match your opponents.
Yeah.
But it actually works in Santi's favor here because that Kyogre is going to be the fastest Pokemon relative to Ryota's team, other than the actual Choice Scarf Indeedee. So that's another Pokemon I'm looking at in this matchup for Ryota, because we've seen that Ryota's running a really fast Choice Scarf Indeedee, and Choice Scarf Indeedee, or Indeedee's base speed stat is just higher than Kyogre's. So if they're both, you know, max speed, Indeedee will just actually outspeed the Kyogre here. So I think for Ryota, a lot about it is damaging the Kyogre, making sure that it can't just spam Water Spout. Santi also does have to watch out for potential wide guards from both the Stakataka and the Mienshao. And this is the first time that these two players are meeting in the tournament, so they don't know very much about each other's teams. And this being a closed team sheet tournament means that, yeah, a lot of surprises can come out. And so, you know, Santi has two sets to work with here, so he has more room to kind of adapt, learn information. Whereas for Ryota, really, you know, he has to put on pressure immediately because he's got to win 2 best-of-3 sets in a row. So like you mentioned, Rose, I'm looking for early Tailwinds from both of these players. And for Ryota, I think the Stakataka, it's like a question of how you can fit it into the equation, because Trick Room potentially can be really helpful, but might not be that easy to execute, especially considering how fast the rest of Ryota's team is.
Yeah, I was looking at that as a little bit of a difficult matchup for Ryota, especially just thinking about speed control in this particular match. But Aaron, we saw something in our very first match with Santino that I feel like I've got to bring up, and that's Feint on Weavile. That is one amazing way to get rid of the protects as well as the wide guards that are on Ryota's team. So I think that Kyogre is going to be in a much safer position, especially if you know that that Weavile can protect you and allow you to get off that big damage with that Feint. So that I'm just looking at that as a one way that I think Santi is in a bit of a better position for this match. But Aaron, there's only one way to find out, and that is to get into the grand finals match right now between Santino, Tarquinio, and Ryota Otsubo. Let's go ahead and get right into it and see what these leads are going to be. And it looks like we are going to see Mienshao and Whimsicott, and it's going to be Tornadus and Kyogre coming out from Santino's side.
So both players opting for that early Tailwind option, which I think is really strong. You know, one thing that's really interesting for Ryota in this matchup is you have the fake out, and it's a really fast fake out too. You obviously have to be a little bit worried about a potential Serena switching at any given point. As you can see, Santi actually didn't even bring Serena in this game, but Ryota obviously doesn't know that. So what's really interesting here is, does Ryota take any gambles and potentially just go for a fake out anyway? It is pretty risky, and as you can see here, Santi is, you know, not really thinking about going for the Water Spout, specifically because you have to be worried about the wide guard option on the Mienshao. So I really like the turn 1 play here from Santi's end.
Yeah, I really like that as well. Just playing around the wide guard, definitely something that you want to take a look at, as we do see a Choice Scarf come out, knockoff come out here, which is going to be able to knock off the item that was on that particular Tornadus. But we have the Focus Sash from Ryota's Mienshao that is going to help keep this Mienshao alive, but until the Icy Wind, of course, comes through from this Tornadus.
And Icy Wind here, being able to drop the Whimsicott speed and actually do, you know, meaningful damage as well. I think, like, the one thing here is, without full information of Ryota's team, you could be a little bit worried about, okay, now Whimsicott's got into Tailwind up, and if it has Taunt, it could actually deny you a potential Tailwind, right? But the thing is that the Kyogre hasn't taken any damage, so it's not going to Feint to the Calyrex Shadow Rider in one hit. So for Santi's end right now, it's pretty safe to just Scald the Calyrex and maybe Tailwind with your Tornadus. And from Ryota's end, you know, you could go for something like a Helping Hand plus the Astro Barrage, or potentially protect the Calyrex, maybe Moonblast the Kyogre, chip away at it a little bit, so then a Helping Hand plus Astro Barrage can pick up the knockout. So yeah, Santi here kind of debating between Tailwind and Icy Wind. The reason to Icy Wind here is if you're nervous about a potential taunt, but Ryota doesn't actually even have that taunt. He's just going to launch that helping hand.
Yeah, so you will be able to get the Tailwind off, which is going to be very, very helpful. We talked about how that is going to be beneficial in order for this Kyogre to be faster under those Tailwind conditions. So that Scald's going to come through and burns the Calyrex. I mean, that's not going to do a whole lot there because Calyrex is a special attacker, but we are going to see the Astral Barrage come out now, and that's going to do a significant chunk to that Kyogre, and it's going to deal the knockout to this Tornadus. So Grimnay going to activate here for this Calyrex, which is going to give it a +1 special attack boost, but it's sitting at pretty low HP right now. And because Santino actually locked into Scald, I feel like that's going to be very, very good to be able to just knock out this Calyrex here.
Exactly. I think Santi's decision to not click that early water spout puts it in a really excellent position here. And so, once again, when you're using a Choice Scarf Pokemon, you have to be so meticulous about which move that you select. But I think Santi's played this early game really well. Ryota has, matched the Tailwind, but this is exactly what we were talking about, Rosemary, as we got into this match. You've got the Choice Scarf and the Kyogre, and without Indeedee out on the field right now, you don't actually have something that can outspeed the Kyogre and threaten it with damage, right? And so that's a huge component in this matchup. And once again, this is the first time these players are facing, so I think Ryota now knows, oh wow, you are Choice Scarf on the Kyogre. That drastically changes how I have to approach this matchup. But like you said, that Scald, super, super safe to just launch the Scald into the Calyrex, and then you can go for a triple Axel into that Whimsicott slot.
Ooh, well, we are going to see the Protect come out here from Ryota's Calyrex, so that Scald from that Kyogre is not going to be able to connect to be able to pick up the knockout here. Let's see how much this triple Axel is going to do. We do know that Weavile is holding that wide lens, and it's enough to knock out the Indeedee.
Wow. This Weavile is so impressive, I have to say, and the wide lens is such a cool tech, right? Because like when you're using triple Axel, each hit is its own individual accuracy roll, right?
Yeah.
So for you to hit 3 times, the odds aren't actually amazing. It's
like 70%.
Exactly. And so with that Y lines, that drastically increases. And so what's been so clutch for Santi is that this Weavile is so often connecting with all 3 hits, and each hit does more damage, right? So now that's effectively going to win him the game. I thought there was a very good chance Indeedee could survive based off that last hit. It was so close, but this Weavile is just so good in terms of offense with triple Axel. And, had the Indeedee hung on because of that Choice Scarf, it could actually maybe outspeed the Kyogre and then Expanding Force, and then maybe you can, pull off a comeback from there. But with the Weavile just getting that KO, hitting 3 times, Santi takes game 1 so decisively.
Oh my gosh, but we did see a couple of things come into play that we were talking about before we got into the matchup itself, right? Tailwind, obviously going to be very, very important because that Kyogre can outspeed that Shadow Rider Calyrex under those Tailwind conditions with that Choice Scarf once Tailwind is up on the opposing side of the field on Ryota's board. So I love that we got a chance to see that play out, obviously because Santi waited to be able to use that Tailwind. He was going to get one more turn of that Tailwind anyway, which could have helped out maybe versus that Indeedee had it not got knocked out to that triple Axel. What the heck?
Yeah, so clutch from the Weavile. I think Santi's Weavile is one of my favorite sets that I've seen in a while, and it's not exactly the most common Pokemon in early Series 10 meta, and that Wideland specifically is such a cool tech as well. But once again, we often talk about matchups in Pokemon. It is a really big component of the game, but you also have to execute properly, and that was perfect execution from Santi. I really don't think he could have played it any better. Starting from turn 1, right? Like, he didn't even risk the potential wide guard from the Mienshao, locking into Scald. That was so helpful because it meant that Kyogre could take an attack and still do so much damage. So I think it was really just perfect plan for Ryota. I think now know that the Kyogre is Choice Scarf, so you gotta incorporate the Indeedee now and try to do some more damage with it. Once again, Stack Attack is something that I think could be a really interesting option. It's just so hard, I think, to execute properly here because there's no clear path to victory, even if you bring Stack Attack out and get Trick Room up. But Ryota is one of the best players in the world, and if there's any player that can figure out how to incorporate Stack Attack, it will be him. But to me, now the Kyogre's Choice Scarf from Ryota's end, you have to approach the matchup completely differently.
I agree with that too. I think Indeedee definitely needs to come to this matchup, not just get knocked out there. And then Stack Attacka, it is a little awkward for Ryota's team because the rest of the teammates for that Stack Attack are very fast. So you're not really able to get use of that Trick Room too much. I feel like if it does get set up, so it really heavily relies on that Stack Attacka. But we are just 1 game down in this best of 3. If Santi takes this next game, Santi becomes our Players Cup 25th Anniversary Invitational. Ryota has the ability to make a comeback here, but he's got to win these next 2 games and also win a bracket reset. Let's go ahead and jump right into game number 2, where we are going to see whether or not this is the conclusion or just the beginning of this incredible Grand Finals match.
So it's actually going to be the Whimsicott and the Mienshao this time around with the Tornadus and Weavile adjustment. I have to say, like, for Santi, one of the most impressive things is his ability to read into his opponent's like potential adjustments.
Yeah.
And I think what he was covering here with Weavile specifically was for the Indy lead, right? Expecting Indy. Well, actually, I guess he doesn't know Indy is Choice Scarf, so that makes things a little bit more interesting. But either way, you cover for the Scarf Indy as well as just regular Indy. And now Weavile is out in the field. You know, it's got that fast fake out. Triple Axel does a lot of damage to both of these Pokemon. And so, yeah, I think either way, just mixing things up a little bit here. And Whimsicott once again is going to start off the game with a Tailwind. Mienshao once again notably not going for that fake out because you know you have to kind
worried
of respect
about
the
that
Serena switch in. Exactly.
Yeah, and the other thing about it too is that because of the knockoff that we saw in game number 1, we actually know that Tornadus is Walk-On Berry, but the miss, the close combat. Weavile's just gonna go down here.
Oh, I mean, yeah, with Wildlands, your accuracy is so much higher, but there is still the smallest percentage chance of missing. And, I think if you connect with all 3 of those, we saw knock out the Indy earlier. That first triple axel hit already did a fair amount of damage. That's probably just a KO. And honestly, if you knock out the Mienshao turn 1, like this Weavile outspeeds the Whimsicott. And the Calyrex can't get a one-hit KO either, so that's a really, really critical miss there to start off the game. And definitely, unfortunate for Santi, but, he's still in a decent position. You've got the Choice Card Kyogre out now. Tornadus puts on pressure with Hurricane. The main thing here, once again, is, do you want to lock yourself into that Water Spell? Are you afraid of a potential Wide Guard? Ryota has not gone for it at any point, but it's just such a common move on that Mienshao. And there it is.
Oh, Wide Guard's gonna come out here. So this means that, you definitely can't go for the Water Spout, but Kyogre did actually lock into Scald. So it will be able to knock out the Mienshao this time around. So you are removing at least one of the Wide Guard pressures coming out from Ryota's team, but we are going to see the Moonblast. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage to Kyogre, but the Hurricane here, and now it is increased accuracy in the rain, will be able to do enough to knock out this Whimsicott. And we know it's not Focus Sash because that Focus Sash is on the Mienshao that got broken by that triple axle.
This is such a fast-paced set so far, Rosemary. Ryota's going to bring his last 2. Surely it's Indy plus that Calyrex Shadow Rider. So you do get terrain control now, but at what cost, right? Like Santi has that Rillaboom in the back, so you can potentially just swap out into Rillaboom. The main thing here now is, Santi at this point doesn't know that the Indy is Choice Scarf. We've seen Ryota use his Choice Scarf Indy throughout the entire course of the tournament, so he's going to get some good information here. The main thing here is whether or not you want to maybe stay in with the Tornadus or just make that hard switch. I like the Scald decision into the Indy. At this point, Santi recognizes, hey, if I knock out the Indy, well, my Rillaboom has that knockoff. It's got that Assault Vest. It can just KO the Calyrex super easily, so he's actually going to opt to stay in here.
Well, the Expanding Force obviously is going to come out first from Ryota's Indeedee, and it is going to do a decent amount of damage, but both the Kyogre and the Tornadus are going to hang on and Scald. Oh my gosh, it barely is able to hang on. That's got to be 1 HP here. Astral Barrage now going to fire off, which is going to be faster than Tornadus. A double knockout here. Holy cow. Such a fast-paced.
Even with the Astral Barrage, right? Like, you get the special attack boost. Well, I suppose then you'd get 2 special attack boosts, and then you could maybe knock out the Rillaboom. And so actually, Santi not making the switch out there might punish him a little bit, but I can understand why he didn't want to make the switch. He was worried about potentially, taking too much damage with the Rillaboom there. And also, that's where the big Choice Scarf reveal comes out, right? So now Santi knows he's scarfed, and no burn from the Indy also means that it sticks around for even longer. So even though the Rillaboom is Assault Vest, like this Calyrex Shadow Rider is so offensive that I'm thinking the Astral Barrage would have one-shot the Rillaboom anyway if you get both special attack boosts. And so, that's the strength of Calyrex's ability. I think Santi's win condition here, going for that Grassy Glide. If you get a critical hit there, you actually win the game. But because he does not get the crit, this double-up should now cleanly knock out the Rillaboom.
Yeah, Astral Barrage at +2 is going to do so much damage to this Rillaboom, despite it holding an Assault Vest. So it is going to go down here. And that is going to be game 2, going to Ryota, We've got a 1-1 scoreline on our hands for this grand finals right now. And these games are so fast, Aaron. I feel like, you know, especially with the tailwind involved, the speed control, and also just like doing so much explosive damage in these games, they've been going by so fast.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, whenever you lose the game, you often have to ask yourself, okay, well, was that my best lead? How did it play out? Santi just got astronomically unlucky with that triple axle miss, considering that he's running that wide, right? So the thing is, most of the time, if Weavile picks up that KO on turn 1, what are the remaining Pokemon, right? It's Indeedee, Whimsicott, and Calyrex Shadow Rider. Weavile's faster than the Whimsicott, and then you're up against Calyrex Shadow Rider, which only has the Astral Barrage and the Expanding Force, so they don't do that much damage into Weavile, and then Indeedee, which also doesn't do that much damage into Weavile. And so that turn 1 was such a big deal, right? The fact that the miss happened means that you not only not knock out Mienshao, but then Mienshao also knocks out the Weavile in return. So one thing that I think we've clearly seen from games 1 and 2 is that Weavile is a really, really impactful deal in this matchup. And if you hit this triple axles, it completely changes the tides, right? And so I think Ryota probably recognizes that, and he might want to think, okay, well, now I just really want to make sure Weavile actually doesn't even get an attack off, right? If you lead Mienshao Whimsicott again, you can theoretically just fake out Moonblast it. Got to worry about the Serena switch in, but Santi actually did not bring Serena in that last game.
Yeah, can I just, before we get into this next match, point out the fact that we've got some incredible Pokemon diversity here.
So cool.
It's 12 different Pokemon across the board, and it is so cool to see how they interact with one another. But we got a 1-1 scoreline on our hands. Let's jump right back into the action, because I gotta see how this first set, if this is the first set of a bracket reset, plays out. Ooh,
another mix-up here. It's going to be the return of Mienshao, but this time around Calyrex Shadow Rider coming out next to it. Santi's still just sticking with the Tornadus and the Weavile. And once again, the Weavile is just so scary here, right? Because you can just get a one-hit KO potentially onto either Pokemon. Ryota's team is just so frail here. And so in this position, Weavile doesn't want to go for Fake Out onto the Mienshao because of inner focus, so just opting for damage here. So Ryota has an interesting decision where it's like, do you respect a potential Serena in the back? The reality is if Santi has Serena in the back, that means he doesn't have Rillaboom, and Rillaboom feels so good into this matchup. So with this lead, you often can think, okay, there maybe just isn't Serena in this matchup. But Ryota actually bringing out the stack attack. Oh, wow. First time seeing it.
Okay. Oh, wow. And look at that. Ryota's actually just going to go ahead and use the Fake Out anyway, despite the fact that Serena could have been in the back here. So that means that Weavile is not going to be able to move. But you can still go ahead and click Triple Axle again this turn. But I kind of wonder if you kind of really think about this, because, yeah, you might have Tailwind here, but Stakataka could set up the Trick Room. So maybe you try to put yourself in a position where you can get rid of the Stakataka, because I feel like once it gets set up, Aaron, it's going to be really difficult for Santi to come back from that.
Yeah, and, you know, realistically here, there's no way to deny the actual Trick Room here. And so, Ryota's play turn 1 is actually really cool, right? We haven't seen Stakataka at all throughout the course of the set, but now he's like, okay, well, if I force you to set up the Tailwind early, and then I Trick Room, you're just going to be so fast because of the Tailwind. So even though my Pokemon are fast, well, you have the Tailwind up on your side. So with Trick Room, suddenly Ryota's Pokemon can actually outspeed everything. And so Mienshao's going to make the switch out here. But yeah, you got Stakataka out in kind of the perfect position here. Now, Indeedee does come in, and because Rillaboom came in first, you actually gain a little bit of terrain control there, which is really nice for Ryota. The main thing here is, first of all, is Weavile able to pick up a potential KO? Second of all, the Psychic Seed comes out here. Not super relevant in this set. Triple Axle is going to come out. We've seen this knock out Indeedee the first time around. It is going to connect for all 3 hits, and that's just the one-hit KO. This move is just so strong into Ryota's team.
Oh my gosh, I know, exactly. We are going to see the Stakataka get off the Trick Room, though, but this is where things get a little interesting because, you know, as we were kind of talking about in the middle of that first and second game, there aren't a whole lot of Pokemon on Ryota's team that can actually make use of this Trick Room very, very well. I guess when you especially think about, like, you know, Calyrex is really fast, Mienshao is going to be very fast as well. I just kind of wonder how this is really going to play out for Ryota. You're heavily relying on Stakataka to deal big damage.
Yeah, you know, Ryota actually not bringing out the Calyrex there. The problem with bringing out Calyrex is if Santi's Rillaboom is really slow, then even with the Tailwind setup, it might actually still outspeed Calyrex under Trick Room, meaning that you can just knock off the Calyrex for a KO, right? So Ryota feels a little bit forced to bring out the Mienshao, and that's kind of the awkward dynamic of this matchup. Now, for Ryota, you do have the opportunity to just click Rock Slide a bunch, right? That will just knock out the Weavile. Tornadus, it just takes so much damage from it as well. So Santi's goal right now is to put himself in a position where he can just pick up 2 knockouts in the same turn, right? Where if you can knock out this Mienshao, Kyogre Scald will just eliminate the stack attack very easily, right? And so I like the decision to actually conserve the Rillaboom right now because that's going to be so handy into Calyrex Shadow Rider in the late game. Oh, and
Weavile avoided it. Oh man, I mean you're basically sending in your Tornadus to take a huge Rock Slide here, but the fact that the Weavile doesn't get hit with the Rock Slide, and oh my gosh, Tornadus hangs on as well from the close combat coming out from the Mienshao. That's gonna be huge, especially with that defense drop, with this triple axle coming out now. Oh my gosh, it's gonna do some big damage. And let's see if you get the 3rd hit here. It absolutely does, especially with that wide lens.
This Weavile is so incredible. It just is able to consistently pick up 1-hit knockouts into Ryota's team with these triple axles. And, you know, props to Santi because he identified that Weavile would be a critical Pokemon to this matchup. So this is a really interesting endgame, right? Ryota does have this stack attack. That's a really big dodge on Weavile as well. If Ryota hits that, then suddenly you eliminate Weavile, which is a really big offensive threat, obviously, to the team. And so stack attack is still looking pretty solid. You've still got that Choice Scarf Kyogre in the back. It's the last turn of Tailwind, but multiple turns of Trick Room. I think the main thing right now is for Ryota, you can just keep clicking Rock Slide. It's really just your best attack. You have flinch chances as well, and you could potentially get boosts from Beast Boost as well. And then for the Calyrex Shadow Rider, you can go for Astral Barrage or Expanding Force to cover for those potential switch-ins. For Santi right now, I think maybe you just are willing to give up both of these Pokemon, get the free switch-in into Rillaboom and the Kyogre, and then just go for knockoff Scald. So I think Santi's end, you don't want to switch in right now because the 2 Pokemon in the back are just so good. Tornadus is absolutely nothing right now, and Weavile isn't going to do anything if it hangs on.
Yep, gonna go ahead and knock out that Weavile here. Get that Beast Boost, which is going to, I believe, increase its defense here as one of its highest train stats. And then we're going to have the Astral Barrage come out from this Calyrex, which does secure that double knockout like you mentioned, Aaron.
So here's the end game scenario. Right now, you still have the Choice Scarf on the Kyogre. Trick Room is still up, so Kyogre is going to be attacking last. You get the Rillaboom out. Tailwind just petered out, so the Rillaboom is going to outspeed the Calyrex right now. Meaning that it can just go for knockoff, right? And the other thing is that you do change the terrain, so another play you could potentially go for is just like Fake Out plus Scald if you're Santi's perspective, but you might be a little bit worried about Protect from Stack Attacker, for example. We know that Scald isn't going to actually get the 1-hit KO onto the Calyrex Shadow Rider. You do also have the option to go for Water Spout, but the problem with Water Spout there is if the Calyrex actually does have the Wide Guard, for example, here. So yeah, right now we're in a position where you can go for Scald plus knockoff, but with that you do risk a potential flinch chance from the Stack Attack, which really at this point feels like Ryota's best option. Santi looks like is going to opt for that knockoff option, isn't going to go for the Fake Out. So let's see. Oh, the odds are in his favor, right? You just need to dodge a Rock Slide flinch with this play. There's the Rock Slide.
Let's find out. Okay, the Rock Slide is going to connect onto both Pokemon. Rillaboom flinches and doesn't move! Oh my gosh, the Astral Barrage now going to be able to come out here from this Shadow Rider Calyrex. It is going to do enough to knock out this Rillaboom, and that's it. Ryota is going to be able to take this first matchup, get the bracket reset. We're going to a second match right now, Aaron.
Oh my goodness, that was so cool.